Live tonight from the virtual ISM Raceway, LSR TV is happy to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to our continuing coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. We're tonight from Avondale, Arizona. We go racing for round number 4 on this 2019 campaign. We're happy that you're locked in with us at a Monday night on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. As always, it is myself, Evan Pasoko, alongside Justin Prince at the booth this evening. Downstairs, Brett Wheeler is bringing us to you this evening. And Justin, we see our first race with the all-new 2019 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series package. Not, though, in its full form. We'll talk more about what that means as tonight goes on, but it is a new race car on track tonight as we go racing for 150 laps.
Yes, indeed. It's still the 750 horsepower package that we'll see on the short tracks throughout the 2019 season in real life. However, it does have some bits of differences. While it doesn't have the things like the brake ducts or the aero ducts that you see at some of the intermediates as well as the mile-and-a-half circuits, you still have that giant rear spoiler, rear back wing really, essentially. That will help really pick up the pace of the drivers across the entire track. We've been seeing record lap times throughout the entire iRacing service for the Cup cars this week. That means the pace is going to be a little bit faster. However, the racing is still going to be a very similar race to what we've seen in past years at a track like Phoenix. It's going to get more interesting as the year goes on, though, and the drivers have to go back and forth between 750 horsepower and 550 at the various different tracks at Evan.
And of course, this race easily relates to prior years at Phoenix because this is still last year's version, per se, of the ISM Raceway. So to not confuse anybody who may have been watching some racing action over the weekend, this is still the straight front straightaway with the dogleg on the backstretch. We'll do our best to remind you of that and hopefully ourselves not forget either. But let's talk about how we've gotten to this point. 3 races down after Jonathan Caddell's season opener win at Daytona, 2 intermediate tracks then in a row, both wins going to defending series champion Andrew Farinars with a win at Atlanta and Las Vegas, but he doesn't come into tonight in the points lead. Rhett McBride, Mr. Consistency, has finished top 5 in every single race this season so far, still looking for a win, but he does come in as your points leader, 3 points ahead of Brian Macklin, and then Andrew Farinars slots in the number 3 position with those 2 wins, 8 points off of the top spot. So slowly starting to see our top 3 or 4 pull away. That's good. The end objective, though, is at the end of 23 weeks, the top 16 make the playoffs, and it is a fresh reset. So just because you're a Thomas J. George in 7th, 26 points back, or 27 back for a Kyle Kamer right there in 8th as well, not the end of the world. Be top 10 in points, be top 16, you're doing your job, but certainly in the opening weeks, we're starting to get an idea of who some of the favorites will be.
Yes, indeed. The point standings, as you mentioned, really tight, especially in around that bubble spot, but it's way too early to tell who's going to be in that playoff bracket with the top 16. The favorites, you mentioned drivers like Freenach, Macklin, McBride showing lots of consistency and pace. Jason Jacoby up in the top 4. You also have drivers like Jonathan Caddell that did very well at Daytona, has had a bit of struggles in recent weeks though. You have other drivers trying to get the rhythm. There's still a long ways to go to try and gain the points you need to get up towards the front and or be in that top 16 so you can make a run for the championship, Evan.
Yeah, so the old school turns 3 and 4 is still 3 and 4 here, which means it is 8 to 9 degrees of flat progressive banking at that end of the racetrack, and the little bit steeper turns 1 and 2, 10 to 11 degrees is still where the drivers will come to headed down and into the first quarter. Qualifying just now rounding out another interesting thing, and it continues to evolve with all the builds as this Q session draws to a close. Justin, drivers looking at track temps and hoping to catch some clouds here in qualifying. The dynamic weather and the dynamic skies have played a big factor in racing this last week.
Yes, it absolutely did. We were just discussing this before coming on air today. Lots of drivers in the Cup cars waited as long as 3-4 minutes, where if you get a cloud during qualifying, it can be a difference of track temp of about 10 to 12 degrees in some cases. Jimmy Mullis set the overall track qualifying record because he waited the longest out of everyone throughout the week and had the coldest track, the entire week in terms of NIS racing. And we just seen a lot of drivers do the exact same thing who are waiting until the final 2 minutes of this session before they were trying to slot themselves up into the top 10, where if they didn't wait, they'd be towards the back instead. A lot of those drivers set times in the 4-7, as you're about to see.
Yeah, let's go trackside. Take a look at your LSR TV starting grid. Pole position this evening to the 3, that is Jason Jacoby. He'll bring us to the green a blistering lap time, 25.417. He'll lead Connor Horn in the 24 to the green flag this evening. Jeremy A. Miller will start in 3rd spot. Andrew Farinar is in the mix, rolls from 4th, and Thomas J. George rounds out our top 5.
Kyle Kammer sits in the 6th spot today, qualifying in the 25.5.30, with Jonathan Dell starting in 7th, along with Brian Macklin, with 4 drivers to complete every single corner so far. Brett McBride and William Kruzga rounds out the top 10 drivers today before they drop to the 6/10 of a second bracket.
Yeah, first start of the year for the driver, the number 21 behind him. Jeremy Bazemore starts 11th with Josh Gerlach in 12th. Scott McClendon gets 13th, and Joker Johnson ends up P14. Continuing on through as the field starts to roll, Jared Astrop is 15th. Chad Shelley in his 16th position back on row 9. You've got Greg Omo 17th, 18th to Andrew T. Jones, with Jeremy Rittenberg and Brian Lambert rounding out your top 20.
Chase F. Austin, we talked about him at Las Vegas. He sits in 21st with Brad Bohr in 22nd. Kurt Rittenberg will start alongside Brandon Johnson, with Skylar Shackelford starting alongside Anthony Fredericks in his number 4 Rockstar machine. John Fowler rolls off 27th with Sean Callist, I should say, in 28th, with Brian Springs and Tom Moreno rounding out the top 30. Then you have the rest of the field essentially as the drivers pull off. Bryce Whitson Jr., Nicholas Caldwell, Caleb Weekly, Scott Brotherton, the last drivers to record times. Then 5 different drivers did not record times. Eric Stanford, RJ Williams, Brian Chambliss, Dylan Phillips, and Matthew Miller.
You look top to bottom at your LSR TV starting grid. Pace car going to dive down as we get set to go racing for 150 laps. That means 153 miles. In the Phoenix Desert, pace car down and in. The field in the hands of the number 3 Ford. It is Jason Jacoby's field to bring to the green flag as we go racing for the Phoenix 150 Round 4 of 2019. And we're underway to turn 1.
And a good start, except for towards row number 2. Thomas J. George had to lock up the brakes and then some. Nearly snapped the car towards the inside wall, trying to avoid the back bumper of Jeremy Miller, who had a much earlier braking point than everyone else in the top 5.
You spread them wide as they go through the dog leg, but it tightens real up to the low bank. Turns 3 and 4 to battle for the race lead across the start-finish line for the first time. Jacoby defends, and Horn now clearing to go to the number 1 spot. So the 24 going to go to P1 as battle therefore behind for 3rd position. Also single files out. Look how low the 24 and the 88 went on the inside. That move's going to put Farinars, who's really tight into the corner. He's squeezed Jacoby up, and those 2 drivers discussed it on the radio. At the end, they'll give Farinars the spot.
Yes, and that's something that we might see a lot of today. There's differences in brake biases where if you don't have the proper adjustment, your car can sail up right towards that middle line on corner entry, because a lot of these drivers wait until that 1 cone along the fence. That might have been the case there we've seen with the 88 machine. Now he's going to have to try and focus to catch up to Connor Horn as they head back down the start and finish line. Everyone else single file all the way back to McClendon along with Gerlach.
Yeah, so a good opportunity for these drivers to get some space. We talk about this ISM Raceway, formerly known, of course, Phoenix International Raceway, a track that kind of walks the line between is it a short track or is it not? I mean, it is over a mile in length, so by conventional standards, you'd say no. But when we're talking about a majority of the races this year being made of those 1.5 mile intermediates, we're going to go to a 2 mile track in Fontana, California next Monday night. I think you got to consider it a short track, and it certainly races like one. So getting a clean start, getting some spacing through this field, critical for drivers to be able to work into this 150 lap race and get some green flag racing in.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I still consider this a short track as well by far, but that means we might see the potential of tempers flaring and a lot of drivers trying to be aggressive to try and get spots. It's not where in a 1.5 miles you can sit behind someone and be a bit more patient. Some drivers, they want to try and get up towards the front and quick, because if they stay behind some driver, they'll be passed on the outside themselves or dive bombed on the inside and lose spots. That's something that we're going to see a lot of tests of today as the 29 tries to make some moves, trying to get by 8th, couldn't do anything, as there he goes, letting that car to the outside.
And on the outside, here comes the 5 of Rhett McBride's going to put him under pressure. William Kruska, first start of the year in the Sim Racers for Mental Health entry, of course, title sponsor of this Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. And a good start for Kruska so far. It's a tough customer, though, on the outside of the racetrack. The 5 of Rhett McBride looks like he'll get him this time, coming up and out of turn number 4. Rattle for the race lead, though, as it starts to be closed in on Andrew Friedars. We mentioned that great run that he had last week at Las Vegas en route to victory lane. Started 17th, still won it, so P4's nothing for the driver of the 88 machine. Took a big look to the inside there, not cooking yet, but he's already gotten up to P2, and he is on the doorstep with 8 laps down.
And he really had to get out of the gas. Got a good run, but it looked like he got tight. That was something that we were discussing too before this race, the chance of downshifting, where if you do downshift, you're going to sail up out of the corner exits like that we've seen with the 88. I think he's right now trying to just time up the spot where he can try and boost on by Horn, either on the inside of turn 3, or try and get a run on the outside down the front stretch to set up a pass out of turn number 1 and 2.
And we'll see how patient or impatient this 88 machine is going to be, because he's got Jacoby all over him. It was a short-lived pole position for Jason Jacoby. He was, of course, as you mentioned, the fastest car in Q by a lot. Found a lot of speed. His qualifying lap was about a 10th better than the best lap he put down in the hour-and-a-half practice session that happened earlier in the evening, but again, wasn't able to defend after the first 1.022 miles. And it was overtaken by Connor Horn. So 1, 2, and 3, they sit on top of each other. There's a lot more separation throughout the top 10 from there on back, but a great battle for the race lead as we see Horn feeling the pressure. Even he's going down to the dogleg there on the flat of the racetrack, trying to protect the inside. Does not want to let either of those cars get underneath him.
Yeah, and this time, ended up not downshifting this time, Horn this time. Able to still defend that line. But I think Jacoby might have been trying to save a little bit for the first couple laps to try and get something towards this portion. He's now trying to go for second spot on the left rear door of the 88 machine of Renard.
And that's the issue with the 88. If you're not pushing, that car behind you is going to get there. The 3 tries to hold it down. He's tight, and look at that as that battle comes at a turn number 4, and it is a defense for Andrew Friedars. Friedars had a very similar move early in this race to get the pass on Jacoby. They got into each other, made contact, so a little bit of payback there. Jacoby didn't rough him up, but he certainly beat aggressive all over the bumper now as they head back into turn 3. The top 3 last time separated by just 0.2.
I think it was just a matter of when he lost that lead, he just didn't get as good of a launch as I think he wanted. Now that he's been able to run at least 10 plus laps to start off the green flag run, I think now he's starting to get into the rhythm, which is very important for the short tracks, to try and gain that time back and try and gain that lead back. All 3 of them, I think, know they're right on the same pace. They're all within half a tenth of a second each time by the past 3 laps.
The 3 again looks low. Friedars hanging on. The battle for the race lead now continuing some 14 laps into this race. Some good movement mid-packs, a bit like a Brad Borer in the 48 moving forward. So there's always guys making it work, and you can see the intervals up at the top of your screen there, so you never miss out on anything that's going on throughout the field. But your race leaders continue to attempt to make these moves. The inside's open. I think if Friedars wants to get a nose down there, I mean, the 24 doesn't want to let him get there, but certainly he's not going to give him enough space to get back and into the gas. And that's really the challenge here, is he's almost playing a truth or dare or chicken game with him there. Go ahead, go to the inside, trying to make it work. So far, it hasn't been able to, but you got to think you give Friedars a couple of cracks at you. He'll figure something out. Look how low he goes, all the way to the inside wall that time.
Almost a bit too low. It's like he almost had to turn the wheel a bit more to the right to make sure he got the right angle. But I think you hit it on the nose. A lot of drivers prefer to try and pass on the outside line, believe it or not, this week it seems. Because you get the chance of having to be pushed on down on that bottom side. So the only way to really make it work is if you clear them by the apex of the corner. That's why I think Horn's saying, go ahead, try the inside line. I know you're not going to be able to get as good of a launch if you take it to that specific spot. And why he's sliding so much towards that middle line? Because if he paints that yellow line and leaves the door open, Freenar's is going to try and zoom by that right rear quarter panel and try and make a pass.
A lot of cars getting into each other all over the field. I just saw 2 cars rubbing up on each other for 31st and 32nd position. We can't really take our eyes off of the battle up front until something happens. It feels like it's coming at any minute there now, and Freenar is certainly trying different things. A little bit of a more aggressive entry that time into 3. He got very close to Connor Horn. Of course, it's going to hurt him on exit. And right there allows the 24 to get a little bit more spacing, as now Jacoby again peeking inside, but unable to complete the move. We had 39 cars start this race, 38 of them still on track. Only Eric Stanford is not on the lead lap. I do not believe he was with us on the grid. As Freenar's again to the bottom of the racetrack, and the 24 once more first and into the throttle. Did also want to note that Dylan Phillips has been struggling in the 31 with some connection issues, unable to stay in the sim. He's 15 laps down, but continues to try to get himself back out and onto the racetrack. And maybe one of the best challenges from the Jacoby camp thus far. He stayed with the 88 that time. It'll be nose to nose this time down into 3 and 4. Is the 3 machine going to be able to get back up on the 88 off the quarter? That's the key. And it looks like he's doing a good job of keeping him honest. But Freenar's nice move on the outside again will clear before they get back to 1.
Yeah, I think again, it would have been a matter of Jacoby having to push up a little bit more, push Freenar's out of his comfort zone to try and make that. I think he's trying to think about this time. He's trying to push him up with that right front fender without making contact, force him to psychologically mess up the corner entry to try and get the run, but I don't think it's working, especially with the talented drivers that we see here. But the more they fight, the more Horn can try and get some breathing room up towards the front. Already has gained a couple car lengths on those 2 drivers since they started battling the past 2 laps.
He's certainly been crowding him a couple of times, and that's kind of the dance that goes on in the corner. Freenar's on the outside. When they are side by side there, you don't want to let Jacoby too high up the track, because again, he's going to be able to get back into the gas and kind of challenge your exit, whereas you don't want to pinch him too far down though, or you're going to hurt your exit as well. So battle for P4 going on. It's about 2.5 seconds off of your race leaders right now. Brian Backlund and Kyle Kamer, both those cars up from where they started. Kamer's +2, Backlund is +3. They are fighting right now for 4th and 5th.
And not only that, George is trying to follow them on through, because Jeremy Miller, we've seen him brake much more earlier than a lot of the drivers. There's on the early portion of this race, I think that different braking line is starting to come into factor. Backlund nearly pushes up again into Kamer. They've nearly made contact twice in about the past 3 laps. I think right now Backlund's trying to not push the issue too aggressively, but I think he knows he's got the bit of the faster car. It's just about the right place at the right time to make the move. Right now, he's just not in that right place to even attempt the pass yet.
He's just not in the correct position. And, you know, early on, if we agree, I think we're on the same page that we can consider this ISM Raceway a short track. And it comes, as you mentioned, with the short track tempers, racing around people so close quarters. You can force yourself into a position too early. Not a good idea. Here comes Backlund, though, in the fight for P4 and 5 on the inside of Kyle Kamer. Gets right up next to him, and once more, the outside with a better run off of the quarter. The Backlund's there. I don't think he's really had a nose into the quarter into turn number 1 quite yet, and you still see that Thomas J. George watching the battle. Jeremy E. Miller, in fact, is kind of picked up. He's right there. Points leader, Rhett McBride, not all that far off either. But you've got your top 3 pack, and then that pack of 4 through 9 pretty much all on top of each other. Great stuff here going on inside of the top 10.
And Backlund almost, I think you've seen that too, almost had the run to actually match the speed. The thing is, he got loose on the bottom, which can potentially happen the more these tires wear out, especially on a hot light racetrack like it is right now here at ISM Raceway. I think if I was him, I would try and get a run towards the outside line. This is what he's doing now. He's trying to mix it up, try and force Kamer to the bottom side, to try and get that better boost on the corner exit to try and make the said move, because I think he knows he's getting held up way too much. The pace between these drivers, or right now the pace between him and Kamer, about a tenth of a second each time by.
And they are all over each other, but you see as they start to get some more laps on these tires and they kind of start to feel them go away, and That car not really bite center off as much as it once did. They aren't going as low. Down on the dogleg. Macklin on the outside of the racetrack, though, but a great spot here. He'll have it at the line. The 8 machine with a nose to the inside. I think Macklin wanted to come down, decided against it at the last moment. That was a bobble into turn 1, cost him a lot of time, and it brings Kyle Kamer right back into the mix. But the 8 gave the 30 so many problems defending outside that I think Macklin's going to be able to complete it by attacking on that high line.
Exactly, there actually comes Throttle, makes contact!
Macklin's going to get tagged, both cars into the wall, and the first caution of the night comes at lap number 29. It looked like it was a bit of Macklin trying to pinch off that corner, the 8 machine trying to keep up on him, and those two cars got into one another. It is Macklin who gets turned from the left rear quarter panel, noses into the inside wall, and we have our first yellow of the afternoon.
Yeah, I think both of them were just expecting one or the other to stay on a certain line. It was just a racing incident. Macklin ends up making the contact, trying to come and squeeze him down. Kamer tries to go up for the corner exit, and they just make the contact. Macklin taking the brunt of the contact towards the front bumper. Kamer also getting significant left front suspension damage. It was just a matter of two drivers in the same place at the same time trying to fight for position. If that contact wasn't there, Macklin would have cleared the corner. I think he would have been able to clear the corner exit if he was able to stay on the higher line. Instead, we have our first caution on lap 31.
The lap number 31 is where the caution comes, and it doesn't appear that either of the drivers involved are going to claim the caution, which means, and then as I say that, there is a claim caution to Brian Macklin claiming the yellow. He was the car in front there that may have squeezed the car on the bottom a little bit, so that is going to be 1 penalty point for Macklin. I was just about to mention, if you do not claim the caution and it is assessed post-race, it is 2 penalty points instead of 1. Of course, 7 accumulated bonus point or penalty points will get you suspended for a race. So Macklin takes the claim caution, takes the penalty point as your race leaders are on pit road for the first time as suddenly we're in the shade.
Yeah, giant cloud has come over the racetrack. Track temps have already dropped 3 degrees since this cloud came out. But the strategy at this point, most drivers are going to, yes indeed, get 4 tires. Way too early to try and get 2. Close race off for second, though, in the pits. Jason Jacoby ends up moving 1 spot out of the pit exit as everyone goes by that blue cone. But to hit on your point on the caution points, Danny Wade Eberhardt's got 2 points so far in terms of that. Jonathan Goodell with 2. Bryce Whitson Jr. with 1 point as the total drivers with caution points heading into tonight.
And every single race you go without causing an incident or without racking up an additional penalty point, you do get 1 taken off of your tally. So again, if you get up to 7 penalty points, you got to have a rough outing or two. But of course, that is where a 1-race suspension would take place. We haven't seen it yet. I don't expect to see a lot of them, if any, as the season goes on. But if you are suspended for a race, when you come back, your penalty points do not go down to 0. You start with 4. So it is kind of like a mini probation thing. New penalty point system in effect for this 2019 season. So Macklin's going to find his name on the board headed into Fontana in next week's time. But back at it onto the racetrack again, not a ton of changes. You mentioned Jason Jacoby, that 3-wide battle off of pit road, that curved pit lane really helped that 3 car out. He had the #1 pit stall for quality on pole. That's beneficial at any racetrack, Justin, but because pit road's curved, Brian Macklin's out on that far side, or Frinars, I should say, sorry, in that battle. Frinars is out on the far side of pit road where you should go after you come out of your box, because you cannot drive through any more than 3 pit stalls. Jacoby's in that last pit stall. There's no one in front of him, so he can go straight out while all those other cars go to the far right side and take the wider corner. That worked out great for the 3, as he will be back on the front row with the lights out on the pace car.
Yeah, and that's, again, one of the best places, I think, to have a pit stall, because while it is tough to see it while coming in, coming out, it can help you so much if you started up towards the front. Jacoby had that advantage we talked about, and now he's going to try and see if he can get a better launch this time on the outside line of Connor Horn. This restart might get a bit crazy here, especially with some of the drivers up at the front, and in the pace we've seen. However, it brings a lot of drivers that showed speed back into the mix.
We'll see how this shakes through. It was a good run to the start of this race. First restart going to come at the completion of lap number 34 of 150. Long way to go. but a very quickly paced start to this race, as we'll see what Jason Jacoby can do if he has another opportunity to get a little bit of vengeance here on this one. Connor Horn passed him outside on the first start of the race. Now that the 24 is in control, it's a role reversal, but it is a great jump for the 2-4 Connor Horn. 2 car lengths to turn 1.
Yeah, great launch to be able to get himself away and a lot of clean air to start off the restart. But Freenach able to get another great launch. Nearly hits the safer barrier, but able to just clear Jason Jacoby with how low he went down the dogleg. My goodness.
88 machine is not shy of getting way down, and it really tightens that car up, I think, headed into 3 and 4. So Jacoby's going to tuck back down to the inside. So side by side, they go for second. The longer this goes on, the better the number 24, Connor Horn's going to be able to get up and get out of here. This time it's Jacoby down. Even on the outside, though, of that battle, Freenar is still using the dog leg. And now the 3 cars even cheat the yellow line a little bit.
Yeah, they're riding toward, actually pushes up on the corner exit. They're getting very tight. I think Jacoby's saying, you know what? You seen him there trying to save his tires. Why fight this aggressively? Just a couple laps in the restart, because if you shoot your tires in terms of fighting too aggressively this early in the run, by the mid portion of the run, your tires are going to fall off like a cliff if you don't start saving. That's what Jacoby, I think, decided to do as he's back to single file.
Yeah, and the 3 machines get to stay in line, and we'll see how that top 3 shakes out. Now more positions gained for the 20 Donna William Kruska. Now in P6, a race high for him. A battle behind him, McClendon trying to get to the inside of Jonathan Cadell. Cadell was leading your points going into last week's race at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Wrecked out of that race and is looking for a pickup tonight in the Steel Horse Toyota. He's able to hold off McClendon as lap machine the 54 of Brian Spriggs holds low. Spriggs going to fall to 3 laps down.
Yes, Spriggs had to pit right at the time of the restart. Has some right front damage. I think he might have something going on with his car, significant damage, and why he's going down to the bottom, trying to not be a big significant risk. But McClendon was I think it didn't surprisingly affect the battle. The thing is, though, McClendon's going to have to try and get this done if he wants to get in the bottom quickly, because after about the next couple laps, that's where that top side gets back to being an advantage with the tire.
It takes about 5-10 laps and you really see the outside line come into play. And we have seen a good bit of separation now as Rhett McBride now makes a move to the outside of McClendon. The 5-51 fighting for 8th on the racetrack. And McBride looks like he's going to be able to get that one easily enough. The 51 McClendon slows low as he had a little bit of a blip there, and that's also going to allow the 11 of Jared Astrop to go through also. So couple of big movers. Astrop's 11 machine up 6 spots now as he tails McBride. Right now, again, 3 positions out of a top 5 spot. Only driver to be top 5 in every single race so far.
Yeah, and that's difficult to have that many top 5s so early on, so consistently, to do it every single race and to stay out of trouble. We talked about just 4 drivers came into the day with completing every single corner. Brian Macklin, before that past incident, was the only driver not to have any incident points. Not caution points, incident points, whether it was in the grass or touching another car or touching the wall. It's very difficult to stay consistent that even this early on throughout an entire season, let alone. And to have that consistency so far to being in the top 5 every single race, I think shows a lot of talent in how he's been able to keep a clean race car.
Battle for the race lead now. The interval's starting to tighten up, and maybe a little bit of deja vu of what we saw the first time through. Farinars to the bumper of Horn. Jacoby with a front row seat. The popcorn's popping as he watches on from 3rd. They've opened up a mammoth 1.7 second gap over Thomas J. George, now 1.8, as all of them a 10th better than the Milwaukee number 9 machine. So he's pretty comfortable in the number 4 position right now. There's Farinars again all the way down to the inside. Something's telling me we're going to have a very good race this evening if these 3 can keep it up.
I think right now he wants to try and take this lead and see if he can pull away and quick. Part of me is thinking he's saving tires. At the same time, I'm thinking he's also getting to where you see him go with that down low. I think that's telling me he's frustrated a little bit. He wants to. He knows he's a bit of a faster car, but wants to try and get by Horn to get at least away from Jacoby. But he just can't do that right now. He can't get the run he needs to because Horn has been so strong, on especially these short runs. We've seen it at Las Vegas in this battle with Freenars. We're seeing it now.
And just kind of monitoring to see, you know, where that next big gaggle of cars is going to come through. You've got groups 2, 3 here or there. A pretty good single file line to the back of the top 10. Once you get past George Miller and Kruska, who are 4, 5, 6, you've got Jonathan Cadell, Rhett McBride, Jared Astrop, and Scott McClendon, all relatively close to one another. The intervals per lap up to your race leaders is about a 0.2 of a second difference, being top 3 versus being top 10. So certainly drivers have dialed it in, and you mentioned that this is the new 2019 package. No aero ducts, still working 750 horsepower. Nothing like what we will see in 1 week's time from the Auto Club Speedway, but an adjustment nonetheless. And I think you can tell the drivers who have adjusted well enough. Freenars was very nervous when we talked to him last week at Victory Lane at Vegas about this new package, Justin, and I know this isn't the whole thing. We'll have to wait till next week to see, but it is a bigger spoiler, it is a different race car, and the 88 machine appears to be handling it well, I'd say, for 6 days of driving on it.
Yeah, all the drivers really have been handling it fairly well. You know, there hasn't... It's basically everyone's driving about the same way they had been before, essentially, because, again, you hit it on the mark. Same race car other than the different engine and the different spoiler. The main difference, again, though, is it's a bit faster. You're able to carry more speed and have a bit more grip because there's extra downforce caused by that spoiler. And that has caused a lot of this quicker pace that we've been seeing. A lot of the... If we ran this late race with the older cars, or didn't have this bigger spoiler, we'd be running the 27 seconds right now in terms of lap times to the 28 seconds. We've been still in the 26-second bracket the entire race so far.
These drivers, and that's another thing that they mentioned, although we didn't get the next generation of tire model yet, the way that these cars drive, that the lap times don't necessarily fall off quite as sharply as they once did. You can get maybe a little bit more out of a run, and it does kind of emphasize, I think, being a little bit more consistent over the course of a full race. This time through, it is still Connor Horde in control, but that is already 50 laps down and 100 laps to go for the ISM Raceway. 1/3 of the way through. The Phoenix 150. Good stuff so far. 1 yellow, 37 cars on the lead lap. 38 of them on track. Dylan Phillips has decided, at least, no, it looks like he is trying to get back on track, but it's just not his night as those continuing connection problems continue to plague him.
Yeah, that's unfortunate that he's had the technical issues right now. 50 laps down, is constantly trying to make sure he runs on the track, at least trying to finish the race. You got to give it to him to try and do that, though, with what has been going on, but this battle is still very intense, though. That's the thing. I think... Right now, everyone's starting to get towards the rhythms, especially with how long we've had this run. That opens up the door and the question marks. After we've already ran 15, 16 laps, what are these drivers going to pit? That might be, with it being a 150-lap race and the fuel window being about 70 to 80 laps around that range with the slightly bigger fuel tanks. It's going to be interesting to see who tries to undercut who to try and gain some time, as Jacoby's going for second.
Jacoby to the inside again. He gets real tight, forces Freenars up. Those two have done that about a handful of times tonight already down at that end of the racetrack where you've only got those 9 degrees of banking to work with. He'll drive it in hard to 1. He slows up in front of Freenars. Here comes the crossover as he'll go all the way to the inside. And now let's see if he returns the favor.
And that's what Jacoby needed to do to try and make the bottom side work. Clear him by the apex. He took that to heart and just basically floored it until he got right in front of Freenars to hold up his momentum, which is also crucial with this package at all the racetracks with a bigger spoiler because of how much air it punches in. Now, he's going to have to try and punch the gas to catch back up to Horn. Still about 3-4 car lengths separating the two.
Short track move if I've ever seen. When you dive low, you go up high because you're not going to make the corner, you know that. But he pulled up in front of Freenars just close enough to make that 88 have to lift. Andrew was able to cross over, get down to the inside, but the 88 wasn't able to just hook that Ford Fusion right down to the bottom of the racetrack. He had to lift. That allowed Jacoby to defend, and therefore he got that precious outside positioning. And here's something we haven't talked a whole lot about on the green flag run this year. Jacoby now running away from Freenars, that he's completed that pass. I think Jacoby's got a pretty good opportunity here to go after Horn for the race lead as the 88 slides back a little bit.
I think two things are starting to come into his way. One, there's a giant cloud starting to come across the racetrack. Two, we've seen him save a little bit in the first 10 laps of the run, and I think that's starting to give him that little edge that I think he was hoping to get. But as they're all starting to shuffle on, guess who's finally made its way to the lead group for the first time today? Thomas George in the 9 machine, just 4 car lengths back a third.
Thomas J. George with a 26.9 the last lap. That was faster than any of those drivers battling with first, second, and third position. In fact, all of them again run 27s. George does as well with a .024. Farinars into the outside wall. That time at a turn 2, showering sparks. He gets ridiculously close to that wall every single time on the back straightaway. Both coming out of turn 2 and going into turn 3. A little bit more space here this time down the front straightaway. But just watch how aggressive the 88 is, using literally every single inch of this racetrack.
And that's what is potentially there. Nearly scraped the wall again. That's a risk you have with how you drive in the early run, because
he's showering sparks every time. Yeah. I'm convinced if he's not hitting the wall, he doesn't feel like he's hitting his line, because it's every single time.
Oh,
and a
caution! Yes, and somebody had to hit somebody. Yes, there is a car spun on the backstretch. It's Andrew T. Jones, who's been having a nightmare of the season because he got hit from behind, appears by the 00. And put him across the racetrack. Avoided significant contact, though, in the middle of the dogleg.
And that could have been a lot bigger of an incident. Wow, if we can get an onboard shot with the 2. Nicholas Caldwell had a windshield full of that number 64 machine and somehow did not get into him. So a big credit to all of those drivers for avoiding that incident. But I think Jones might have gotten a little bit tight on exit, lifted out of the throttle is what I'm thinking. And Bryce Whitson, who just had a better run off of the corner, gets into the bumper there, hooks him around. And those two drivers getting into one another. Bryce Whitson claims the caution, so he will receive the end of the longest line penalty and a penalty point as he fesses up for that one after getting him in the back end.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did there. Looking at this, Andrew T. Jones just basically blipped the throttle at the same time. Bryce Whitson Jr. was just flooring it out of the corner exit, not expecting the blip of the throttle. About a 3-4 mile per hour difference causes the spin, and now allows everyone to come on in once more to get some fresh tires. And a lot of drivers are starting to slide through the pit stalls. Brendan Johnson with a huge slide.
It is a unique pit road entry. We talked about, the way that curved pit road can help you out. It also makes it a little bit difficult to get correct positioning in the box. Here's the race off of pit road. The 24, Connor Horn, is going to hang on to the #1 position, and by inches, again, it looks like the 3 machine is going to be scored in front of Farinars. I thought the 88 might have had that one as they came to the pit lane exit. But again, that #1 pit stall paying off huge for Jason Jacoby to just get enough to get to the line, which is, no more than 6-7 feet out of his pit stall, and that's going to allow him to be on the front row for the restart here.
Yeah, I think that if you look where those green cones are, that is where they basically scored. Jacoby was in front. When they reached that yellow line, basically the original pit exit for a lot of the drivers before the insertion of the blue line in the service, he was behind them. So that's where I think some of that might have came. A couple drivers, though, are now a couple laps down. McClendon, I should say, all had to stay behind the pace car, as well as Moreno, as now they're going to be stuck a lap down, having to get some repairs, I think, done, and are dealing with their issues.
It looks like Macklin going to catch back up, and of course pit lane opens for your lapped cars a lap later, but some drivers, stay out, try to get a little bit of something back. It looks like that everybody involved in that incident is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, Andrew T. Jones is looking great for a car that just got turned around in front of a pack of 4 cars. He's got that crumpled in left rear quarter panel, which is, of course, where his Chevy ZL1 got hit, but other than that, I think, again, everybody very fortunate that wreck was not a bigger one. 2 yellows. Now, to this point of the race, the lights go out. Let's talk a little bit about fuel, because that yellow doesn't come out. I think the strategy is pretty easy, Justin. You go 1 stopper to the end. We are, I think, just outside of the window, so I would imagine The strategy would still be a one-stopper, but I mean, you can go so far in this run. You got a lot of decisions. You can pit very early, go to the end. You could stretch it all the way to probably 20, 15 laps to go. So it's a matter of what drivers want. I would not expect a lot of people in early, though, with the risk of a yellow catching them a lap down.
No, I expect everyone to just basically run as hard as they can. If we get towards 50 laps, I think that's where drivers start considering the strategy to come in. But I think most of the drivers are expecting at least another caution or two to put them out of the worries of fuel. Now it's the worry about trying to gain track position.
His car going to go down and in. Connor Horn, control car, did a very good job of getting himself a jump the last time. Let's see what the number 24 Chevrolet's got this time through. A little bit of a check up at the inside. The green flag waves. 63 laps complete now from ISM Raceway. Still second is Jacoby. Frenars tucks up in line third. Thomas J. George P4. And here comes Jonathan Cadell for fifth. But way to the inside is Jeremy Miller.
They nearly fanned towards 3 wide. Able to still get towards the outside. Jeremy Miller was the one with the checkup because he tried to jump the restart. Had to slam back on the brakes and then get back going. That held him up for a couple tenths of a second. Back to single file, though, towards the front, except to where McBride. How about a deal with the 11 machine side by side out of turn 2?
McBride in the 5 has been upside every single time I've checked him out, and it is the 11 base drop trying to get low. A late dive there is... I think McBride felt like he had almost that one. The 11 actually cleared him in the center of the corner, but the run for the 5 is going to be so big, he'll come all the way back from behind and pass him down into turn number 1, and now it is Miller on the inside. Not going to be able to pass Cadell. The 69 hangs on, and William Kruska, a little bit of a missed entry into 1. He'll go way low to compensate for that. McBride now going to get dive bomb. Chad Schilling 3 wide. That's the 25 car digging on the inside. Almost contact there. I think he lifted a little bit or it would have been bad.
Yeah, he definitely had to lift there to make sure he didn't push up. But the reason it went 3 wide, McBride got tight on the corner exit. 25 gets tight once again of Schilling nearly making contact with the left rear. So some drivers are actually swinging tight, surprisingly, for the start of this run. It is 5 degrees lower than the previous restart at 94 degrees, meaning there's more grip, meaning it's much more tighter, and it looks like that tightness has caused a caution. Down into 3 and 4.
Into the outside wall, it is Caleb Weekly in the number 10. Yellow flag flies for the 3rd time this evening. And this one looks like the 00 machine with a little bit of a late dive down and in. We'll take a look on the replay, but I mean, I think Bryce Whitson either wasn't expecting the 10 machine to slow up so much or simply just made a little bit of a late dive into the corner, but he just grazed him on the left rear quarter panel, and it does send number 10 machine around. Caleb Weekly backs it into the outside wall, and we will await to see if Bryce Whitson or any of the other drivers that involved in that one claim the caution, but would certainly be not good if Whitson takes his 2nd of the night.
Yeah, that would definitely not be good. He was able to still avoid significant damage. However, it's not good if a driver is involved in 2 incidents like that. Both cases essentially where I'll be quite honest, I had the same issue when I was driving. The one message, and I think it's the right one here, you have to be aware of your surroundings, especially with what's in front of you and where these drivers are going to chuck up. It's the driver in front of you, essentially, that makes that braking mark in terms of when you're in traffic. Whitson Jr. essentially went for his normal braking zone. Weekly went at least 10 feet earlier than I think he was expecting to cause that significant contact to the outside wall.
And a little bit of a mixed strategy on the pit lane this time as your race leaders take off. Andrew Frenars gonna go to the top spot. 2 tires only for the 88. And I believe Jeremy Miller and Jared Astrop play the same strategy card. So Connor Horn, who's been so good, sticks with his plan, goes 4 in fuel, but he will give up the race lead and I think fall to 4th position.
Not only that, we had 2 drivers stay out. Andrew T. Jones stayed out, who was involved in the last caution, escape with not significant damage. Then you have R.J. Williams, who has a front end that's completely crumpled up. Then you have Frenars. Then you have Miller. This is the right spot to, I think, try and mix it up. Usually at short tracks, depending on the track, within 10-15 laps, you can safely take 2 tires without being snapping loose. But a lot of these drivers are going to need to hope that they get a 20-25 lap run, essentially. Because after that, they'll fall off a cliff. Whether they get tight or loose, it depends on how they treated the left side tires during the initial run.
And just looking now, I mean, that was by far the shortest green flag stint we had seen. So if you want to go 2 tires, it's not a bad place to do it. Just shy of halfway home. And a little bit more of a gutsy call to stay out entirely. Andrew T. Jones mentioned was involved in the accident just a couple of laps ago. However, the 33 of R.J. Williams, he as well is in a position and just listed it in as the drivers are chatting on the radio now. Bryce Whitson debating on claiming the yellow flag or not. Sounds like he's not going to. So that one will go to a post-race review. The thing you need to be concerned about with the way this works is it is 1 point for your first cause caution if you claim it. However, Justin, as it adds up, if you cause a second yellow and you claim it, that's 2 points. So already that would be 3 total. If it is not claimed, that would be 4 points against you in the penalty point system. That means if Whitson is found post-race to be the fault of that, he will have 5 penalty points. It's dangerously close to the marker of 7 that we were talking about. But back to my point, R.J. Williams goes 35th to 2nd. Andrew T. Jones 18th to 1st. They are on no tires for the front row. 2 tires apiece for Frenars, Miller, and Ace drop 3, 4, 5. And it is 4 tires from 6th on back. But buckle up for maybe one of the most consequential race starts thus far, and it is an early pull of the trigger. Andrew T. Jones is gone as we go back green.
And now we're about to see how these drivers are going to handle with a bit of these battered race cars and the differences of tires. Mind you, though, some of the drivers were also mixed in with more 2-tire machines to try and go in front of guys like McBride, Lambert, Gerlach. A lot of different drivers mixed things up. R.J. Williams dropping like a stone already on the high side.
Yeah, not working out well, and he's got pressure coming as Miller to the inside of the racetrack. Look behind him. Here come the 4-tire cars. Connor Horn and Jason Jacoby, but a battle for the race lead in front. Andrew Frenars, the 2-tire man, to the inside. Andrew T. Jones was able to lead 2 laps, but it is going to be no more. And Frenars' first time this evening to the point at a turn 4, new race leader. We'll see how long that'll last. 2 tires better than none, but how does it stack up against 4? Connor Horn on the move around the 23 of Miller into 3rd.
And this is a track where track position is king, and I think he's just trying to take that gamble, hoping that there's a caution before the difference of the 2 in the 4 tires really magnifies. Horn already up to 2nd. Jacoby already trying to slice and dice his way up a couple more spots, but it looks like the drivers who stayed out, they might gain some net positions, but they're going to need to hope that there's a caution within the window that they need to be able to make this work, or else they're going to be at the back of the field. Plus, they're at risk still of not making it on fuel if we stay green.
No, certainly. And listen, I don't think anybody was expecting, Andrew T. Jones to stay out and battle for the race lead. But again, if you don't fall further down than 18th, pretty good. If you're Andrew T. Jones or R.J. Williams, you don't fall further down than 35th, pretty good. So again, as you mentioned, looking for net gain as those 2 drivers actually end up battling side by side as they head down the back straightaway. 2 sets of 2x2, and now 3 wide. Thomas George in the 9. There's contact. The 25 of Schilling gets tagged. Astrop is going to spin. He locks it up and hangs on. No caution. We stay green as the 11 car holds on to her.
And a great save to make sure that doesn't swing around, but the caution comes up because we're piling up on the front stretch.
A lot of smoke. Caution finally comes out, and some torn up race cars on the front straightaway. Thought we had gotten away with it, and it comes out a little bit later as it was the number 21 machine. Wrong way around. As wow. It really does stem back to that initial contact. And then that 43, Justin, checked up, not wanting to get hit, and all of a sudden they end up 3 wide. The 21 of Johnson kind of gets hip checked by Brad Borer there, pushes him up in front of the 43. There's the spin and the 4th yellow.
Yeah, ends up getting spun around the field. Really, there's 3 different incidents. It's all at one. There's 2 caused by the checkup. There was that one we've seen with Johnson. There was almost a second caution incident because Olmo got slammed hard into the outside wall by because he floored it, into the right side of Chase F. Austin as that was all going on. So it was just everyone getting bottled up by checkups. And the drivers who didn't check up caused massive chaos for the drivers around them.
This will be the equalizer that they were looking for as the 43 of Kalist claims responsibility for the caution flag. So he will take on the penalty point as your race leaders head down to the pit lane. This is great news for those cars that had just stayed out because they've got an opportunity now to pocket all of those positions gained. In fact, really the only one with the opportunity to gain is Jones here because we saw the incident there involving his strategy counterpart on the last restart, but kind of hits the reset button for him as he will certainly go for 4 tires. However, now that we've started seeing 2 and none, what do the guys up front do? Does anybody else try to mix it up a little bit? Ferdinand sticks with his guns. He wants 4 with a race off the pit road. The 24 horn gonna edge him out, but in front of them all is Jason Jacoby, the 3 car. 2 tires only, your new race leader.
Not only that, Brian Macklin stayed out on that pit cycle after taking to the last caution. So he's now playing the track position game, hoping it stays caution, breed caution. Everyone essentially in the top 5 is either on 2 tires, on older sets of 2 tires rather, or just took the tires. Then the first driver with 4, Connor Horn, and then you got Freenars in that 6 and 7 spot. A lot of drivers taking gambles, not as many as the last time, but this is going to be another interesting restart here to see how this plays out.
But now that the scoring has cycled through with a pit stop, let's take a look now that we're past the halfway point to look top to bottom at our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. It is Brian Macklin, your new race leader. Courtesy of staying out, he will lead Jason Jacoby, Thomas George, and Jonathan Cadell. A trio at the top 4 to the green flag this evening. Those next 3 in line all on just 2 tires. Kyle Kamer will roll for the number 5 spot. Connor Horn sits 6th at the moment. Andrew Fernandez is 7th with Rhett McBride in 8th. Jeremy Miller 9th and Andrew T. Jones rounding out your top 10.
Majority of the drivers that took 2 on the last pit stop gained dividends, and or who the ones who stayed out. RJ Williams 11th, Jeremy Bazemore in 12th, with Eric Stanford 13th. Chad Schilling after the contact was still able to stay in 14th after keeping the car straight, with Skylar Shackelford behind him. Josh Gerlach's start is going to be 16th on this restart, with Matthew Miller, Brian Lambert, Brian Chambliss, and Kurt Rittenberg rounding out your top 20.
Nicholas Caldwell runs 21st with Anthony Fredericks in 22nd. Brad Borer is 23rd. Joker Johnson, Scott Brotherton through 25th position with Jeremy Rittenberg in 26th. John Fowler 27th. Jared Astrop 28th. It's 29th for Chase F. Austin and Tom Morano through 30th.
Cam Weekly's in 31st with Brandon Johnson in 32nd spot. Sean Kalis is 33rd after the end of longest line for the claim. William Kruzka, pardon me, is in 34th, with Scott McClendon now back on the lead lap after the caution. Greg Olmo, he is done for the day after the hit on the outside brawl. Bryce Whitson Jr. blew up right after that last restart. Brian Spriggs off the track, 34 laps down. Dylan Phillips after the technical issues, 51 laps down, the last car running.
We look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break as we go back green from Phoenix. The countdown is on. 69 laps to go as of the restart.
Whoa!
The 9 car blows at turn 1. Thomas J. George, 5 wide. There he goes. Big problems in front of the field, and it is a mess in the dogleg.
Oh man, Williams involved. Lots of other drivers stopped in the dogleg. That was... wow, I don't even know what to really say with that. Essentially, just multiple drivers blew it, especially you mentioned they're right there with George and Cadell rather. The teammates ended up both really blowing it, and George ends up bumping and banging. 4 wide was the corner exit. McBride tried to slam the brakes, but was pinballed up the track off camera, and then it becomes calamity for the rest of the drivers trying to lock the brakes and avoid the calamity. At least 5-6 drivers with significant damage.
And it all started, as you mentioned, with the 9. Just gets a little bit hot into that one, and these drivers are starting to get a little bit antsy as they run right now. So it'll be a little bit of a cleanup from ISM Raceway. So what we'll do is we'll take our first opportunity to take a caution flag ourselves. We'll step aside for a moment, come back for the restart. You're watching the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. It's powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
We're back live for the ISM Raceway as we were assigned a penalty to the 24 Connor Horn, one of the best cars all night, changing lanes before the start-finish line. He restarts in 31st position. But up at the front of the field, Brian Macklin now has got a good crack at, but make some noise late in this one as we go re-green from ISM. Good jump for the Craftsman Toyota, but look at the 3 machine. Jacoby tried to go low though, got loose, had the lip behind him also. Big drop of speed for Jonathan Cadell. He's going to get mauled by 10 cars.
Yeah, he clipped the apron going out of the exit of turn number 2, and that he was barely able to save it. And now look at the gaggle of cars. Jacoby to the outside, trying to make the pass on Freenars now into turn 1.
Miller almost thought about going 3 wide, nearly swooped to the bottom, and that already side-by-side exchange for P2 opted not to. And now we'll see as Freenars comes knocking on the door. Macklin's going to leave the inside open. He's going to leave the outside open also. 3 wide for the race lead at Phoenix. Macklin is going to be the one to bail out of the middle as it is Freenars through, Jacoby through, and Miller. Now here comes the 8 car at Kamer as he goes way deep into turn 1 as the battle for the lead now amongst Freenars and 3 of Jacoby. What an exchange.
And we've seen that line work in real life, in fact even lower on some of the restarts with the new configuration. First time I think I've seen it personally work for a pass. Macklin though, he's been scrubbed into the wall.
Macklin slow on the front straightaway there as they're going to go 2-3 wide to get by him. Track position not paying dividends. We are still side by side and nose to nose for the race lead in this one. I don't know if Miller is just backed off a little bit, not wanting to force a 3 wide, or if these drivers are just giving it 110%, but they are getting some space. And on the outside, Jason Jacoby through and to the race lead with a pass on the 88.
And the fastest lap of the day as well, the coldest track temps of the day as well at the moment. So he's starting to take advantage not just of the 2 tires, but the extra grip that's trying to help him on the short run to help the car I think the 2 tires in this situation are going to help more with the rotation. And now it's the question of, can he hold off that 88? Miller this time by is about a 10th off of the 88 in Freenars, 2/10 off Jacoby.
I mean, it was an awfully gutsy move for the 23 to even be a part of this battle with that aggressive dive down onto the inside as your now 1 and 2 running cars split at time race leader Brian Backlund to the inside and to the outside in one of the better battles for the race lead you'll ever see. And these drivers of this Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health continue to put on a show as Miller now scraps the wall a little bit out of turn 2. Drivers giving it everything they can. First battle, though, it's for 8th and 9th position. Chad Schillings had a little bit of an up and down night with the 25 car digging on the outside.
And he's digging very well again, got on that preferred line. He's been slowly moving up the grid. He started 16th. We've seen him in that incident, around 13th or 14th. But he's not been held up or really affected, of course, by that other than the right front fender damage. It's not really affecting his speed too much. He can get away with that kind of damage depending on where it is, as long as it's not engine damage at a short track. And now it's just a matter of trying to laser in and focus in on the next car in Jonathan Cadell.
Cadell would be due up next. The Steel Horse Live entries had a pretty good evening. Runs exactly where he started, 7th position. Somebody who is looking to recover from a bad week at Las Vegas. Most drivers are looking to recover from a bad time out at Daytona, Justin. On these normal racetracks, try to make it up. It's actually the exact opposite for Cadell, who won the season opener now 3 weeks ago. His wreck out cost him 5 positions. From 1st to 6th in the championship between last week and this week. So a lot of storylines going through, but despite the fact we're closing in on 50 laps to go, I think one of the most spread out points we've seen amongst the top 5 tonight. Jason Jacoby hasn't been in this position since the opening, 5 seconds of the race, because it was a very quick pass on the outside for Connor Horn. Jacoby now pulling to a half a second advantage for the race lead.
Yeah, he's got the clean air, which is very much keen with these cars. It was mentioned during the race broadcast in real life on Sunday. Having clean air with 2 tires is the exact same really as having 4 tires like the 80, like Freenosh has in his machine. That's going to help them more and more. The more faster the lap times go, and the colder this track temp is. However, it's starting to skyrocket. So if he's been trying to go all out and try and gap him before the track goes back towards a loose condition, that might hurt him, because that would mean he might have shredded up those tires a bit too much. We'll have to see, though, if this run progresses to the point where you'll see fall off.
And for Jacoby here in a position that he has seen himself in many a times in this Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. We saw him join the series for the first time late in 2018, have a competitive race car, in fact have some really good chances to win some races, but it never happened for him. It never came to fruition. Again, it was a great battle late last year with Andrew Fernandez and Dylan Jones going back and forth. But Jacoby, did make several appearances last season, 9 starts, 2 top 5s, 6 top 10s. But this season, he has kind of come a lot more into his element. 2 top 5s already, 2 top 10s, 4th in the points headed into this evening. But he is now in a position with 50 laps to go to do something he hasn't been able to do yet. And that is close out a race Monday night on LSR TV.
Yeah, I think he's been getting extremely stronger as a driver in the past year especially. Because it's been... Of course, a lot of people talk about his simulation rig and about basically being set up like a real race car. A lot of times, that's what a lot of people may go back to think. But really this year, since about mid-2018, he's been taking off in terms of driving Xfinity cars, the Cup cars, driving the trucks. He's very competitive at every single track and is starting to become a threat to actually compete for some victories against even some peak drivers, potentially, depending on the race and the conditions and the track. I think he's starting to really start to show and blossom as a driver in a part of the iRacing service as a whole.
And now it is down to, does this last? If we were to stay green to the end of this race, Jason Jacoby is looking to go 47 more laps. These drivers were just under caution. Lap number 85. The caveat there is not everybody came down to the pit lane, including a majority of your race leaders there who did not. So it is not as clear cut on what you're going to be able to do with the tires. Some drivers with a little bit of gray area on the fuel strategy. There is a lot still to be determined this evening, and you know, with that big wreck, something that we really hadn't seen. A lot of the incidents tonight, we got away with only a couple of cars being involved. How about somebody like an Eric Stanford? A couple of drivers I want to kind of shout out here. Eric Stanford started 39th in this race, Justin, right now occupying the number 4 position. He's had a great run, and Skylar Shackelford, also a driver who has been uncharacteristically quiet so far this evening after having kind of a mid-pack race starting P25. He is now in the number 6 position in his RealSimRacing.com Chevrolet. So a couple of big movers making some appearances late in this race.
Yeah, he's definitely, both of those drivers really started again towards the back. In terms of Shackelford, didn't have the best qualifying. Of course, you'd seen Stanford not hit the mark in terms of even run a qualifying time. Nearly gets pushed up and towards the wall, though, by McBride. So this is, I think he was waiting towards this end portion of the race to try and make some moves. I think he wanted to try and let this race calm down and or let everyone crash in front. So he didn't get, either of them didn't get involved. But McBride showing his muscles.
Oh, the 29. Kruska, that's Kruska into the outside wall. He had gotten hit just a lap prior by the 22 machine. John Fowler got into him. He apologized on the radio. Kruska was not happy, and that 29 car's not happy either. It is going to come to pit road. Kruska had a very competitive car at points tonight, and now he's pitting with just over 40 laps left.
Yeah, I think he actually pushed up a little bit, trying to avoid potential contact. Was nearly 3 wide. He's went up the track, and that's when I'm too tight. He was able to still keep it off of Jeremy Renenberg, but that was severe right side damage. I don't blame him for sending it down towards the pits, especially if that would have affected him if it was a severe motor damage as well for the rest of this race.
Kruska's night is done. He got damaged, and if he had to come down to fix that car, he was certainly going to fall off of the lead lap in this race. That means at least falling to 33rd position, so he is done for the evening. That pack, though, where he was racing is led by Connor Horn right now. Connor Horn is trying to recover from that EOL penalty that he got for changing lanes before the start-finish line. You cannot do that in his Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series that's powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. He got sent to the back. He has just gotten around, though, a big gaggle of cars. Anthony Fredericks, Matthew Miller, Joker Johnson. You got McClendon, Astrop, Gerlach, Lambert, a whole lot of cars there. That's the group that we just saw Kruska racing in, where the contact and incident came from. A lot of those guys on top of each other. Horn, though, has been able to get through it.
Yeah, and to the point where he gained about 5 spots in the span of 2 minutes. That's about 4 or 5 laps-ish. So he's still running the fast times. He was the fastest driver, in fact, last time by. He just needs to get the track position back. I think he'll be okay if he can get a couple cautions towards his direction. But right now, he's just on the recovery drive to at least get back into his position to get a top 10, knowing that I wasn't supposed to switch lanes. Even if it didn't give me a spot, I gotta stick in my lane. He even realized it, too, in the midst of changing the lane at the time. It's still going to be a tough challenge, though, to get by some of these drivers. Cameron, Chambliss, Caldwell, Bohr, all have shown speed throughout the day today.
And they all have had, at points, very good runs this evening. Caldwell up 20 positions as he goes to the inside of Kyle Kamer for 11th and 12th. A little bit too tight, can't complete the move. Chambliss, in fact, in his own right, up 26 positions. Battle for third coming up here shortly. Jeremy E. Miller and Rhett McBride are about to go at it. The 5 car has been closing in. And while the battle for the race lead is some 3 seconds in front of them, still a good battle due up here. We'll see what McBride can do. Looking for what would be, gotta be a record, would be a 4th straight top 5 to start the year for the 5 team.
Yeah, and I think right now he knows he can make this pass work. He's been much more later on the brakes by far compared to Jeremy Miller. And of course, just sent it.
Let him go, yeah.
Yeah, just
there for the 23.
Yeah, knowing that You got a much faster driver throughout the day today that's been up towards the front all day. Why fight it? Why burn my tires up when I can still at least get a top 5 or a top 10 if I just let them on by and cool off those tires for the end of a run?
So he lets the 5 machine go. That allows Miller to kind of save his race car. He doesn't need to, tear it up or burn up his equipment trying to defend 3rd. Instead, he can maintain 4th position and trying to play defense atop of Eric Stanford, who's really not all that far behind him either. In 5th and 6th position, that battle actually between Stanford and Shackelford. One of the more interesting battles on the racetrack right now. Here comes the 12 car at a turn 2. He'll use the dog leg to look to the inside. He'll go for it to turn 3.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got the right position. He did try downshift, but again, it's the similar situation we've seen before or with Macklin. Stanford pushes him a bit down on the corner exit to hold off his run to try and defend the spot, and ends up making it work this time at his number 19 Budweiser machine. In the number 19 black, orange, and white machine to be able to stake that position and hold on from there. I think Shackelford might have to try and change up where he exits the corner to try and get this job done, knowing that he's going to be fighting as hard as he is.
And I'm certain that the 12 is not going to roll over and let this one go. I think multiple challenges going to come, so we'll keep our eyes on this exchange with Stanford and Shackelford. Schilling, Cadell, Macklin, not all that far back. Brian Macklin's been able to stop the drop after on the strategy play of staying out. Dropped the back significantly from restarting on the front row, but he maintains in a top 10 spot, so that's good for him. The 12 with a big run, but it just wasn't timed correctly there. Had to lift a little bit to get to the inside of the 19. It killed his momentum. He can time that a little bit better. He's going to have a great opportunity, but he needs a little bit of sense of urgency, I think, here, because, Cadell is coming in the 69 Toyota. Going to make this a 3-way fight very soon.
Yeah, Stanford's really holding up Shackelford. 0.2 of a second difference between him and Cadell at the moment. I think Shackelford's going to need to time up more laps. Had to get out of the gas again all of a sudden. So for whatever reason, I think he thought he was closer maybe, or has something going on with temps. That is a potential possibility if you're downshifting off the corner to have to worry about your oil temps. You have to back off midway down the straightaway.
Yeah, that's how these drivers have had to adjust to figure this thing out. And, Phoenix is a fun track. You look at it from over top, it's not a conventional shape, and that's what I think makes it so fun as we continue to watch now these multiple battles on the racetrack. We are keeping a half eye on the battle for the race lead. It has fluctuated from time to time. By far and large, Jacoby, Faridar's the 2 best cars on track right now. It was, if you've been with us all night, through now 120 laps, only 30 more to go for the number 3 Ford up front. But it had been that trio of drivers, Jacoby, Faridar's, and Horn. Of course, the 24 machine hit the end of the longest line penalty, and Horn has had some more issues on this green flag run since then, now falling back down to 21st position. That kind of takes him out of this, but no surprise, your leaders are probably going to end up 5, 6, 7 seconds ahead of everybody else by the time this thing's said and done. The question will remain, which of the two is going to go to victory lane? In the last few laps, it had been Jacoby, a little bit slower than Faridar's, though that last lap snatched a 10th back. So we'll see how consistent I think those two could be. Is going to be essential to maintaining that gap. 0.6 of a second sounds like a lot. It is not. You get into the wall, that can be absolutely erased in one corner.
It can completely change at the flip of a switch. And Jacoby's taking a little bit of a lower exit, just a couple more feet away from the wall. Faridar's actually is going right up against the wall, taking a higher arc towards the apex. And Jacoby right there had to check out of the gas. There's some of that consistency again. Some of these drivers are starting to push up. We've seen him off and on. And again, it's also the difference of tires. Remind you, Jacoby on 2 tires, Faridar's on 4 on their last pit stops as they dodge lap traffic.
Very nice job there. Just want to say to the driver of the 1 machine, Jeremy Bazemore was on the outside at turn 4 there as those leaders were coming. And, all you have to do at minimum is, just either stay high or stay low to get out of the way. I think if that 1 stayed in the gas, Andrew Faridar's would not have been able to exit the corner like he wanted to. The 1 saw that, backed off. Great driving there from Jeremy Bazemore as he falls 1 lap down in this race. It allowed Faridar's to get a 1/10 of a second to pick up another 1/10 of a second. That lap is putting a few together here. For the first time in a while, the gap's down to less than half a second.
Yeah, it's closing in very quickly here, so all of a sudden, I think Jacoby's starting to struggle a little bit. Freenards is starting to really send it in too and use a little bit of that apron that was used for a lot of drivers to try and find clean air a little bit. It's kind of helping him on his entries. The thing is too, he's been able to hold on to the time on the exits to rebound back to gain those little 10s here and there. This time, lost 14.4014 though on the last lap. So he's making the time stick for these late exits. Jacoby's backing up the corners much more to try and get a faster exit.
And maybe that's where the difference is going to come here. If you're that 3 machine, you got to start mirror drive and figure out what the 88 machine is doing, because this is getting a lot too close for comfort. They're going to get around the 9 of Thomas J. George. He stays high, gets out of their way, and watches Ferdinars work it down to 0.3 of a second. So all of a sudden, Jason Jacoby struggling long run from the ISM Raceway. There's a ton of cars. Look at the battle right now for 4th position. Almost 4 wide with the 69 of Cadell to the inside. They push high, and it looks like Shackleford and maybe Stanford got into the wall. These 4 cars. Oh, no! There it is! Miller sideways turned, and a yellow flag with just 23 laps to go.
I could see this kind of coming. I think that was started all the way from the exit of turn 2 because Miller hit the outside wall. That caused the 3 wide going through the dog leg and bottled things on up. Then, once they got out of the dog turn, as you see on the replay, he ends up braking again early with Stanford, mind you, on his back bumper. Stanford hits him. Stanford actually pushes up the track. Shackleford ends up scraping the outside wall. Cadell also pushes up. They seem safer there, but Miller, still 3 wide, able to still clear him, tries to mash the gas. The thing is, though, if you stay in 4th gear and go full throttle, you can lose the cars back end. That's what happens. Cadell, no time to check up, hits him in the back end. Caution flag comes out. Able to stay out of the racing line, but he gets the worst of it. Miller gets the worst of it by far in a crazy sequence.
And you saw it on the replay there. Miller got loose on his own, and
yeah,
it is no justice that he gets the most damage in that. I guess Cadell gets off pretty okay. The front end damage very minor, but Jeremy E. Miller does claim the caution, so it is not going to go to a post race review. And tough break for Miller, who had been having one of his best runs in 2019. It is going to fall short, and we have a whole new race, folks. Race leaders to pit road with 20 laps to go. Jacoby with the 88 hot on his heels.
And I think most of these drivers, the strategy has to be take 4, especially with the difference in tires. Now the question is, who's going to be in the faster stops in the pit stalls? Jacoby, about 0.3 of a second slower to get on the jacks alone, so something going on with that. That's going to hurt him on his pit exit, and that's going to end up making the change.
That may be the pass for the race win, and it comes on pit road. We'll see how it plays out, but Andrew Ferdinars gets it after Jacoby had been the one making up the spots on pit road all night long. Late onto the jack, he will fall to 2nd position. All of a sudden, how the tables have turned. Thomas J. George currently being scored in 3rd position. He has yet to come down to pit road. McBride off of pit road 3rd, Cadell 4th, and Shackleford in P5.
And I seen it coming the second they stopped in the stalls. Even Jacoby, even though he had the earlier pit stall, stopped in the stall. I'm surprised it took so long for them to get it up on the jacks. A 15.2 overall to go in the pit box, then to come back out essentially. Freenars with the fastest stop I think we've seen all day, a 13.9. And the fastest time in the lane as well, 14.3 to be able to get this lead back. Now the question is, can he hold on? He's been showing the muscles when he's in clean air, but now he's got Jacoby who's going to start to his outside hungry. And you got to think about a lot of the other drivers that have been moving up the field for this chance to battle for the race lead with under 20 laps to go. With the race on the line, we might see the tempers flare.
And it is going to be a very different looking running order aside from those top 5. I mentioned Ferdinars, Jacoby, looks like Cadell and Shackleford also with McBride now trying to find his correct position in line. Looks like the 5 machine is going to have to try to blend back in here. But what you see in front of your race leaders right now is Brandon Johnson, Sean Kalis, Dylan Phillips, and it looks like just those 3, they stayed out, so they're going to take their wave by. All of them going to come back to the lead lap. That'll give us a total number 32 cars scored on the lead lap for a restart that'll have 18 laps to go for Renars. Maybe for the first time tonight, going to be leading some laps from Phoenix. The question is, though, how many of these 18 laps are we going to be able to run at full speed?
The key thing is leading from a restart, essentially, for Renars. He has led some laps here and there. This is his best chance to try and pull away from the rest of his competition. But I think I keep an eye on McBride. He was showing a lot of speed in that last run. We'll see how he does on fresh tires this time with the 86-degree track depth.
It could be for the final time tonight. The pace car heads down and in, and the field is in the hands this time of Andrew Freitas as he looks for a 3rd win in a row. Green flag in the air. He pulls 3 car lengths to turn 1. Jacoby safely in 2nd, and Jonathan Cadell outside to 3rd as they go 3 wide on the dogleg.
And a bad start for McBride, really slowed down in the corner. You know what? He's got front end damage. That is really making him struggle on these straightaways, so there goes what could have been his advantage on the car. Somehow got damage on the front end of the number 5 machine, and he's dropping back and quick. The top 2 able to pull away from the rest so far.
McBride scored a P6 the last time by. He's finished the top 5 spot every race so far in 2019. He watches the side-by-side battle that sees Skylar Shackelford go to the inside of Eric Stanford. That is the fight right now for P4 and 5. And the inside's only going to be better, I think, than the top line for so many laps. From that 12 machine to Shackelford, you need to get the pass done now. But what a drive on the outside. Stanford takes it away.
And I think right now you see him on the dogleg. He needs to get to at least back into a single file line. And I think he's right in this possible spot. Gets a bit of a checkup trying to squeeze between Stanford and McBride, trying to hold off both the runs essentially. Able to do so, but McBride, I think, is not quite happy. He wanted that spot still. He's up to the outside.
The outside he goes as they continue to bring this one down to the wire. Oh, and out of turn 2, a spinner. It's McBride. Into the inside wall he goes. Caution flag is out, and there goes the streak as McBride, I think, got a little bit too close to the wall, pulled it back down, and in doing so, contact with the 25 sent him for a spin.
Yeah, he really pushed up the track. Didn't let off the gas, however. Once he started trying to turn towards the dogleg, that's where you had Schilling making a huge run. Big time difference in speed. And on top of that, I think, yes, indeed, there was actually a slight bobble from McBride as well. Now, on that 2 in the corner exit, slight bobble to the left. That shifted him right in front of the 25's right rear front fender. That ends up spinning him. Hard contact to the right side wall. Now it's going to be the hope for him at least. He does not have severe engine damage that can hurt him for the rest of the run to even have a chance to gain spots back.
It looks like over the radio, Brandon Johnson has claimed responsibility for that incident, although he is discussing, I believe. So Brandon Johnson actually was a separate incident in turn 1.
Really?
He didn't spin. It looks like Brandon Johnson got up into the 51 of McClendon, got sideways and saved it. However, at that same time, that's when the 5-car spun. So you'll see what happened to Johnson here. Johnson's incident was not caused the caution there. So Johnson claimed the yellow. I don't think that is going to stand. I think he's talking to race control now, that was a misunderstanding and he would like to not claim that caution. There was an incident with him, but it definitely wasn't the cause of the yellow.
No.
So, the actual incident, I believe, is going to go to post-race review. Both drivers discussed it over the radio, not feeling like that it was either driver's fault. And that is one key thing to note, that it has not been this case in series past and in years past, but this year, Justin, if drivers do not claim the caution, as we mentioned, if they do, it's 1 point. If you don't, and race control post-race says, yes, you caused it, it is 2 points. There is also an opportunity now for race control to call it a racing incident. There is no clear fault to either driver, in our hopes of allowing these drivers to race one another more competitively this year and not be so uptight. So if both drivers honestly feel like the caution was not their fault, they should not claim it, and post-race, it could be determined to be a racing incident. So I believe this one going to go to a post-race review, and Johnson is not going to be penalized for that because the contact that he had did not actually bring out the yellow.
No, it was a very close battling, yes, but at the same time, no, it was definitely not the cause of the yellow, as we obviously seen. McBride, though, is still stopped in the backstretch, I think, as all this is going on. So I think he has to sit behind the pace car. I'm confused here what the 5 is doing to McBride. He's been sitting down at the bottom of this entire discussion after that contact for some reason. But one thing I do want to note, as this has all been going on, drivers rolled the dice, mixed up their pit strategies up. Some drivers stayed out. A lot of drivers came in. Jason Jacoby, because he came in, is 23rd on the racetrack.
Less than ideal for Jason Jacoby, who all of a sudden finds himself out of cycle, maybe feeling like more cars would have pitted. Listen, I mean, tires are important, don't get me wrong, but I don't think tires are going to make you go from 23rd up to the race lead, so that may have just lined this one up for Ferdinars.
Yet, with as many laps there is to go, no way he can gain as many spots as I think he's hoping, especially with what was just about a 10-lap difference in tires. It didn't work in real life. It's not going to work here. Track position is very key at this point of a race. That's why so many drivers stayed out. I'm surprised he even considered it. I'm surprised. I think he was hoping that more drivers were going to duck down, but not at this point of the race would tend to go. No.
And it was a small sample size, but I think he noticed on that run that he wasn't going to get Ferdinars. I think Ferdinars was better. I think those cars so similar that you had to give the upper hand to whoever had the track position there, and Andrew had pulled a little bit on him in the number 88 machine. However, the way all of that works, Jason Jacoby, I mentioned that he needed to do what he hadn't been able to do, and that is close out a race. And the way it looks now, coming to 10 laps to go, tonight will not be the night. Jason Jacoby still searching for a first career win in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series. But I can tell you, though, is Andrew Ferdinars is going to be 9 laps away from getting a third in a row unless a new challenger comes into play. Because remember, Connor Horn, penalized, took him out of this race. Jacoby with the pit strategy takes him out of the race. There's 2 of your big 3 tonight gone. Ferdinars should be, by far and large, based on what we've seen tonight, the best car on track, but that has never stopped somebody from going at it. With a 9 lap to go restart, Jonathan Cadell will restart in second. Eric Stanford is third, with Skylar Shackelford in fourth, and Chad Schilling rounding out your top 5 in the running order. The pace car's going to go down this time. Still a chance for another yellow to restart if we so need it. But 9 laps left on the board from ISM as Ferdinars looks to close it out. Green flag and a good jump on the inside as Stanford goes for second.
And I think right now there's going to be not as much space given. This time he does get space from Cadell. Good run on the corner exit. Now has to fight to try and defend down the dog leg as they're still side by side. Schilling with his highest positioning with Shackelford.
Shackelford right there in the number 12 machine. He'll win out in the battle for fourth, and look in front of him outside, Stanford bettering Cadell for P2. The 69 machine doesn't want to lose the top 3, though. The 12 of Shackelford is right there on him. Side by side they come as Andrew Ferdinars is checked out to a half a second lead up at the front of the field. Cadell's going to have the inside line. Again, the inside's not bad right off of the restart, but somewhat older tires going to make this real close. Shackelford right there on the outside as they get into each other at a turn 4.
Yeah, using the elbows a little bit. Thought he pushed him a bit towards the wall. Cadell trying to push him back up the racetrack. And now they got
him! The 12 car sideways, and there he goes. Skylar Shackelford into the wall. Caution at 6 laps to go as he and Jonathan Cadell did battle. The 69 machine got tight and pushed up and into the 12 machine. They might have been okay. The 45 of Brian Chambliss with nowhere to go finishes the 12 car off, and more late race fireworks.
Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting end of the race for sure. At least one more restart with this, but again, I think that was all apart from the tight battling. I think Cadell was not given as much space after the last situation and ended up just building up towards that tight condition as he went up the track. And in the end, worst damage, I think, is Chambliss by far, as well as Shackelford to the front bumpers of both their cars for what will be at least a couple lap shootout the rest of the way. Now it's going to get very interesting how these drivers try and handle it from here on out.
And something else we should note is we talked coming into this, and as we do, we always keep you updated on the penalty points. And not to beat the dead horse, but there were only 3 drivers with penalty points starting tonight. It is not going to be that case as we leave and head to Fontana next week. However, caution comes at 144. Our typical point of no return is lap 146. If you're unfamiliar with how we do things here Monday nights on the iRacing Sports Network, it is the fact that, of course, in all of iRacing, there is no overtime or green-white checkers. So tonight's scheduled distance, 150, that is the distance we're doing, no more and no less. So a restart can occur with 6 to go. Now, you get inside of 4 laps to go or less, probably not going to, but I believe we are due for a 2-lap or 1-lap run to the end, and that will be exciting if we get it.
Yeah, this is going to be where the fireworks start to go to their dramatic finale, to say the very least. You've got teammates on the front row for this restart. You got Schilling, who started, mind you, in 16th up to his highest spot in 3rd. You got Jonathan Cadell, who's shown flashes of speed, who will probably have to send it in deep to even have a shot to try and make a pass. You got Cameron that's been bounced around like a pinball. Joker Johnson, he's in the 6th spot. Where did he come from in 6th spot? There's a lot of drivers that are hungry for spots. Plus, you got the drivers in the back on fresher tires, like Jason Jacoby. He starts in 19th. He's going to need a big one to have a chance even for a top 10. This is going to get absolutely hectic here once this race goes back green. How do the drivers handle it's the question. It's going to take a near perfect restart to match up Freenars, for Stanford to have a shot, or for anyone else to have a shot.
And again, the way that the points work in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series powered by SimRacer for Mental Health is that the objective, obviously, qualifying for the playoffs, and in order to do so, you need to finish in the top 16 in the points after 23 weeks of competition. Obviously, you want to go out here, Justin, and fight for the race win. That's why you're seeing a lot of late contact and aggressive driving up front. However, unlike with the real-life counterpart, if you're watching the Monster Energy Cup Series racing, there is no win and you're in here in our Monday night series. So I can understand the point to where if the win is an automatic lock, maybe you risk it. But, I mean, there's a lot of points for a top 5 and a top 10 finish that you're throwing away over 1 or 2 points to cost you 20 if you don't finish this race.
I was just about to say that too, thinking about that. Yeah, a lot of these drivers have... The drivers who even pit threw away valuable points just by hoping that there was going to be a bunch of cautions or a bunch of incidents that destroyed a bunch of cars. Now it's to the gamble where we're going to have a 2-lap restart, a green-white checkered, where a lot of these drivers, they might not be thinking about the big picture. They might be thinking of the short term, thinking like they can gain the points later on. We'll see, though, which ones are thinking of what. Restart coming up right now.
And I can promise you this will be the final one tonight. If you get to the white flag, you race it out. If not, we'll see what happens. Green flag in the air for Andrew Ferinars. 2 laps to go from ISM Raceway. Battle is on for 4th right now. Kamer on the inside of Cadell. It is Stanford in P2. 4 car lengths off your leader.
And showing wanted Freenars to go immediately. Didn't go as early as he wanted. Now he's being forced to the high side. It's near 3 wide, battling just to the edge of the top 10. White flag coming up this time.
They're going to get to the white flag. Your race leader takes the line. This race is official. 1 more lap around at Avondale, Arizona. Still a fight for the final step on the podium. Cadell to the inside of Schilling. This one is going to be the side-by-side battle down to the wire. But in front of them, Andrew Ferinars going to take control late. He'll go 3 in a row. Winner this evening from Phoenix. Ferinars gets the job done. Stanford second, and a photo finish. Chad Schilling to hang on to P3.
Heck of a race and a heck of a drive again by Ferinars once more. But he got the luckiest out of all the drivers, I think, tonight. Had the track position all night long. Stayed out on the crucial restarts. and just stayed out of trouble essentially the entire day, kept the car clean, kept away from incident points, kept away from black flags, and in the end, he ends up taking the checker flag and a 1-2 with his teammate in Eric Stanford as well tonight.
And you can see Stanford joining him on the front straightaway. Double burnouts for the teammates, as it is, once again, an Aegis 1-2, not the first and far from what I expect to be the last here in 2019. So as Radar celebrates what you think would be a close to career best, right? 3 in a row, pretty good number. Not even close to this guy's potential. Remember what we talked about last season, some of the runs that he had gone on. A career high for him last year was 6 in a row. He's halfway there, but he certainly had to work the hardest for this one out of the other two so far this season. He is headed down to victory lane. We will meet with him in a moment, but before we do so, we'll take one final opportunity to step aside, and when we come back, it'll be the LSR TV post-race show. You're watching the Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health on the iRacing Esports Network.
My name is Steven Corpenos. I'm a senior web developer here at iRacing, and I work on the beta UI. It's funny because iRacing has been around for 10 years, but we want to keep delivering the best possible user experience to our customers, and we've found that the old UI isn't exactly what we're trying to deliver in 2018. We want to use new features and provide the best possible experience when using the sim. One of the projects that I've been working on is some custom heat racing configuration for hosted races. We've been listening to our customers. Everyone's been asking for custom heat races. Maybe you want to tweak a few things with the preset iRacing configurations. Well, now you can using the beta UI. So once you're at the homepage of the beta UI, you just go to create a race. Then from there you go to your set race options. And you'll notice here under event types, you can actually choose heat racing. First, I'm going to show you how to create a new format from scratch. You can choose the number of entrants. And as you can see, when I made that change, the change was actually reflected on the right side in the graph. Also, you can use the estimated duration at the bottom of the graph when you're changing the length to see what the total duration of your event will be. In addition, you can customize every aspect of the session information, practice, qualifying, heat races, consolations, and of course, the final feature race. Because the beta UI allows us to develop features that are robust and complex, this feature will be exclusively available on the beta UI. Once you've made all of the changes, you can hit save. Say you forgot what you selected. You can always preview it using the preview format button. We are very excited to release the brand new heat racing configuration feature that will be available in Season 3 of iRacing.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSR TV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSR TV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. And back live from the virtual ISM Raceway as LSR TV's coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health continues tonight from Avondale, Arizona. 4 races down on 2019. Andrew Freitas is your winner in tonight's Phoenix 150. We'll go trackside, talk with our top finishers in just a moment. Before we do so, I want to welcome you back into the LSR TV booth. Myself, Evan Pasoko, with Justin Prince upstairs. Brett Wheeler bringing us to you. We look top to bottom at this evening's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. Freitas with the win, ends up atop teammate Eric Stanford, who comes home in second. Chad Schilling is third. They will all be down trackside with us in just a moment. Jonathan Goodell just misses out on the top 5, gets a 4th place result, but a good pickup after a DNF a week ago. Kyle Kamer is your 5th place finisher. Brian Chambliss, your biggest mover of the evening, pretty close with Eric Stanford as he goes plus 30 positions to go to the number 6 spot. Joker Johnson comes home in 7th position. Brian Macklin is 8th. Brad Bohr is in 9th position, and Jared Astrop rounds out your top 10.
Josh Gerlach finished off 11th, with Kurt Rittenberg having one of his better finishes of the season in 12th. Nicholas Caldwell came away 13th, with Matthew Miller having a quiet day, going from 38th to 14th at the finish. John Fowler came away 15th. Connor Horn, one of the storylines of the night, after changing lanes on one of the biggest restarts of the race tonight, went all the way to the back, went back to 14th, had technical problems where he dropped 10 spots in the span of a lap and a half because of said issues, went back up to 16th by the checker flag. Jason Jacoby, after being faked out on the pit entry and sticking in said pit entry, ended up being the only driver in the top 20 at the end to come in for tires with 13 laps to go. He recovered to 17th. Sean Kalis came away 18th, with Jeremy Miller. He was up in the top 10 much of the day after his wreck, finished 19th. Scott Brotherton rounds out your top 20.
21st position is Brandon Johnson. Anthony Fredericks right there, 22nd, with Jeremy Rittenberg, somebody who had a quiet night, 23rd. Caleb Weekly is 24th, and the one of Jeremy Bazemore through your top 25. All these cars, again, still finishing this race on the lead lap, but maybe short a little bit of sheet metal compared to what they started with, but it is P26 for Thomas J. George. He had a good car for much of the night. Skylar Shackelford also ends up 27th. Tom Morano finishes in 28th position, with Andrew T. Jones, an early record, 29th, and Brian Lambert through 30th.
Chase F. Austin, another rough night for him. Got bounced around a few times, including on the final couple restarts. Came away 31st. Rhett McBride, after showing top 5 speed, came away 32nd after his damage to his car. Even made contact before that last restart with Andrew T. Jones when they were lined up at the back. Scott McClendon ended up having technical issues towards the final 10 laps. Came back on the racetrack, came away 2 laps down in 33rd. William Kruzga came away 34th after he crashed, 45 laps down. Dylan Phillips, 49 laps down is where he finishes after his technical issues for the first third of a race. While RJ Williams, Greg Omo, Bryce Whitson Jr., as well as Brian Spriggs, all also DNF'd, either due to crashes, blown engines, and or damage.
Going to be a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. You could go online to www.fegpc.net and get yourself a custom-built iRacing computer. You mentioned code LSRTV10 when you get a quote, and you can get a little bit of a discount. So big thanks to them, the Ford Entertainment Group, for coming on with us for 2019. That being said, let's head down to RealSimRacing Cup Series Victory Lane, where we are caught up with the driver of the number 88 machine for what is a 3rd week in a row. He parks it into Victory Lane. Tonight, though, kept us guessing until the closing laps. Andrew, congratulations. It is yet again another win for you in this Full Throttle Cup Series, but it was not a dominant performance. Normally your MO is if this car is down here and we're chatting, there was no doubt about it. For a lot of the night, though, you were fighting with Connor Horn, Jason Jacoby. The big 3, we kind of dubbed you guys over the course of this race. You'd pull away 5+ seconds, and it really looked like it was going to be settled amongst you, but all of a sudden at the end, you were the only one left.
Yeah, I just want to say this before I get into it. Connor Horn and Jason Jacoby were a ton faster. They were pulling me in a long run, pulling me in a short run, and they deserve to win this, not me. I lucked into this one, and I will be the first one to admit it. But man, It feels good to look into it, I'll tell you that. Usually, we're out front and, maybe we lose the lead on pit road and we have to go in, come back, fight back. We're top 3, I think, maybe a top 4 car realistically, and I just couldn't figure these things out, Evan. I struggled all week. I put in probably 24 hours of at least practice and 125 laps just in this session alone before the race, and it's just, I don't know. I can't figure it out. So, we had top 5 speed tonight, but we didn't have winning speed, and we really just lucked into it.
Well, you mentioned pit road. A lot actually happened down there this race. The eventual pass for the race win, I guess, happens there as you were able to leapfrog Jacoby there, who had been the one using his pit advantage to pass other cars all night, but then also a late race caution flag. You make the dive like you're going to be coming down to the pit lane. He tucks in line behind you. You dive out at the last second. He sticks with it, and all of a sudden, he ends up as one of the lone cars down onto the pit lane. Was there any thought process to actually make the pit stop there, or were you just trying to see what the guys behind you were thinking?
To be honest, no. I did, like I said, I did all the practice in the world. I could tell you what 2 tires would do after, how many laps you want to run. If you run 10 laps, you could take 2, but anything past that, you really couldn't. And, I knew how many laps were left. I could tell you what lap times he was going to be running to me, and I knew I was going to stay out there. The bait was, again, I thought he had a quicker car, and I think it would have been a really fun battle to the end. But I was just trying to bait him to get down there, and it worked. And, nothing against him. I love racing against him. He's a really good guy. And, I know we bumped a little bit tonight. There's a few slide jobs, but that's what this package does. It's so hard to pass. You have to do it. So, I was trying to get him to come down, and he did. And, again, that's no disrespect to him. Just, I knew he was probably going to pass me if I didn't do that.
Well, you get the end result you wanted, and that is a 3rd straight win for 2019, digging yourself out of an early hole and should be pretty close, if not atop the championship, as we head to Fontana next week. And that's my next question, because you were very adamant when we chatted last week that you weren't really looking forward to losing all the horsepower. Well, you had it tonight. It was the new package, the bigger spoiler, yes, but next week, I think, is our first real taste of it. You get the aero ducts on it with that bigger spoiler and, of course, the severely reduced horsepower. What have you been able to learn this week, and how do you think that race is going to go on the 2-mile oval?
I think to answer that, really just got to break down what happens tonight. You saw at the start of the race, the 3 of us were kind of just in line, and like I said, it's hard to pass. My theory, and I can't confirm this, but the car in front of you has such a big spoiler and it dirties the air up, and we were just pushing at a 2 and pushing at a 4 when you were behind him. That's why you saw me running the high lines, not because it was quicker, just because it was clean air up there and it wouldn't push as bad. That's what I noticed throughout the week doing all my testing, and to me it made it very, very hard to pass, and it makes it hard for people to pull away. So truthfully, I was looking forward to the short tracks, but I feel like it's really going to change a lot, and I struggled a lot tonight. As far as next week, everybody watching, tune in. It's going to be a blast. You see Talladega, you think that's fun. Auto Club in Michigan, those 2 tracks are just going to be like that. I think strategy-wise, you might want to just push the guy in front of you, push him away, and then maybe decide a race amongst yourselves. But everybody's going to be so close. The draft is going to be huge, and it's going to be a long week trying to learn how to do all that.
Well, we'll let you get off and get a head start on it then. Before we let you jet, Andrew, as always, the sponsors, the shout-outs, and all of those good folks who makes it happen for you on a week-by-week basis.
Yeah, I just want to say, first off, again, big shout-out to Jason Jacoby and Connor Horn. They're not going to do an interview tonight because, they just have bad luck, but they were really, really quick. I enjoyed racing them, especially Jason. We were racing hard, but I thought it was clean. I got to thank my brother for building computers, as always. You guys for putting the broadcast on, all my family and friends for all they put up with. I know I spent a lot of time this week on here. I was just trying to learn it, trying to adapt to it. All my team, Andy Kessler, I know he was watching, for putting the great paint scheme on. Eric Stanford, Kyle Kammer, Sean Kalis. Go to sksimracing.com. They have all your sim racing needs on there. Great guy. David Washington. All the fans for watching, and all the drivers in this league.
The race winner tonight from ISM, Andrew. Congratulations once again. We'll catch you next week in Southern California.
Thanks so much, Evan.
So Andrew Fridars heads to victory lane once more, a third straight win for him, and it was his teammate Eric Stanford who didn't get the race win, but was doing burnouts with his teammate there. It's an Aegis 1-2, and you are parked trackside, I guess, with the second part of all of that. Justin, Eric Stanford, second place tonight.
Yes, indeed, we are. Eric Stanford started dead last, shotgun on the field in 39th, came all the way up to second. Eric, how was it to try and fight through the field going from dead last after not recording the qualifying times to getting a 1-2 with your teammate?
It was tough. I had to start from pit road because I had some computer issues. So I couldn't run a qualifying lap or none of that. So it was it's definitely tough.
Absolutely. How difficult was it to pass? Because your teammate mentioned that in dirty air, the car would push a lot. How difficult was it for you, in your opinion, to try and pass with this new package?
On the low line, it was tough, but on the outside, it made it easier. For me, I don't know, some of the other guys kind of had a hard time up there, but for me, I had a lot of, I don't know, it was easier for me just to get around the guys on the high line.
Indeed, right now as well. Now, talk us through what was going through your head as the final laps were starting to close down and you were going up to top 10, top 5, all the way up to being starting alongside your teammate for the final restart with 2 laps to go.
Just nervous. Hopefully nobody was going to pile in coming into the corner on the restarts, and I was hoping I was going to catch Andrew there at the end, but he's a little bit quicker than I am.
I want to ask this as well, though, because, of course, this is a taste, of course, of the new package on the service. It's basically similar, or compared to past years with the 750 horsepower. However, Auto Club is next week. You have the whole week to test it out. What are you and Andrew expecting? We heard Andrew's thoughts on what to expect. What are you personally expecting at Auto Club Speedway throughout the week to set things up for Monday night?
I don't know. It's probably going to be a lot more drafting. It's probably going to be a lot more closer racing with everybody. I mean, it's just, we'll just have to go there and see how it is.
Okay, then. With that, is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go tonight?
Just thank everybody at Aegis, Andrew, Kyle, John Kalis for sponsoring the car with RealSimRacing, Dylan, Dave. That's about it.
Thank you very much for the time, Eric. Congratulations on the second place finish tonight.
Thanks.
That was Eric Stanford getting straight to the point and able to be finishing just 1 place away from the top point. Evan?
Yeah, big thanks to Eric Stanford for giving us some time post-race. Now down trackside with the driver of the number 25 machine. Third place this evening for Chad Zillian. Chad, congratulations on getting a good result for you guys tonight. I got to feel like even though, P3 is certainly a good result, you always kind of think about what it could have been when you got late race restarts like that. But, I mean, overall a great night. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Evan, thanks. Dude, I'm ecstatic. That was so much fun racing with these guys. Certainly coming from more in the backside and being able to race and contend with some of these top guys. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know if you guys saw some of those replays, but I definitely had a something lucky up the whole race here as I barely dodged about 4 accidents all throughout the race as well, and was a part of a couple of them as I went sideways, I think, into 3 on one of them, which was rather entertaining. So just great fun as well. So.
Well, no pun intended, but you guys kept pounding to be able to get through this race, and no lap sled. You basically finish at the highest position that you had been in all night, and in theory, that's exactly how you want it to work. Cars got a little bit of damage. Just tell us about working through this race. Early on, I think a very different complexion. Saw a lot of those longer green flag runs, not quite to the point of green flag pit stops, but certainly late when it gets hectic and everyone's taking 2 tires, no tires, and a couple of late race restarts. Everybody kind of loses their mind. But how were you able to put yourself in a position leading up to that point so that when it kind of got crazy, you were pretty confident with what you had?
Yeah, you're right, Evan. I mean, there's a lot of beating and banging, and obviously you can see my car in the end of it here. That right front fender was bent out through most of the race, which was interesting to watch. But yeah, it was tough. I think the new package certainly kind of brings cars a lot more even, so it's really difficult to pass. Certainly after about 10 laps and those tires are worn out a little bit. So you really kind of had to protect that outside lane and almost kind of trick guys into kind of push to that outside or push the inside so you can get that outside run coming off the turns. But it was fun. I just had a great time. I love racing with these guys in RSR. It's just a great team, and I got a great team at Misfit Motorsports that's just a good group of guys all together. So, and it's fun, and you guys in the broadcast booth do a great job. I love watching and listening to you guys, the replays.
We certainly had a lot of fun calling the action tonight, and I know you got to enjoy what is your best finish thus far by a good margin so far in 2019. We've been asking everybody, so how did you, for your opinion as well? Obviously, it's a new race car. Did you feel, and if you did, what differences did you feel in the car at this racetrack? I know that it is not entirely the new packaging, and of course, the big question, Mark, is what do we see next week?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there definitely seems to be a difference in the aero package. Again, passing seemed to be a little bit difficult. If you got stuck on that outside line, it was really hard to kind of complete that pass without sliding in front of somebody and, kind of being a little aggressive and just hoping they don't cut you off. But, yeah, overall, I think it's certainly good. It makes for some fun racing. I'm looking forward to watching the replay to see how this looks, because I can only imagine watching in the car as to what you guys were able to watch from the broadcast booth and the fans out there. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. There's a great finish, obviously, for our team and for me. And, I'm looking forward for another great finish next week as well.
I look forward to catching up with you again there, but we'll let you get out of here, Chad. We appreciate the time. Again, congratulations on the good result. Best of luck in Fontana.
Yep. Thanks, Evan. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Your third place finisher tonight from ISM, Chad Gillied, with a best finish so far on 2019 as he rounds out our podium this evening. A big thanks to him, to Eric Stanford, and to Andrew Ferdinars, our 1, 2, and 3 placed finishers this evening, for giving us some time to chat with them down on the pit lane after this one. And just like that, 4 races down, again, starting to really get into the swing of things. We have now had our first short track of the year. We've had intermediates. We've had a plate track. We're looking for that one in the middle. And we finally get our taste of 2-mile action. It comes in Fontana next week. Should be a good one. If you've been anywhere near iRacing in the last week, you know that Fontana is going to be pretty nuts. In fact, if you want a preview of what you're going to see right here on a Monday night next week, tune in tomorrow night for the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing series. We are at the Virtual Auto Club Speedway. That's tomorrow night, 9 Eastern start right here on the iRacing Esports Network. Of course, though, we are going to get our turn here on the RSR side of things next week. But a lot of things to talk about. And, I think Race Control's got a little bit more incidents to look over tonight than they're used to, Justin. I still think a great race tonight from ISM.
Absolutely great race, and surprisingly, not as much trouble in a lot of cases than I think I was expecting. But I think you hit it on the head. Next week, though, is going to be nuts. You heard Andrew Ferdinars say what I was personally noticing. A lot of different teams are noticing. The chance for tandem drafting, the need to work with other drivers to maintain speed. If you fall off 0.6 of a second behind a car, that might be the difference of 0.2 a lap potentially in terms of traffic. The thing is, testing with 10 or 12 cars or testing in, as you said, a hosting session is far more different than when you have 35, 37, 40, 43 cars trying to fight for positions when it much matters more. Definitely turn into the Peak Antifreeze broadcast tomorrow night, because that's going to be the preview of what we see in real life too on Sunday.
It is kind of interesting that you'll get your first look at the package on a track on the sim before you actually see it in real life. And just to hop on the Auto Club bandwagon, Peak Series tomorrow night, and be sure to tune in with us right here on LSR TV this Thursday. It is the Dr. Squatch Pro Series presented by Cesra season finale. That one is coming to you from Auto Club Speedway for the Empire Graphics 250. That's this Thursday on the LSR TV channel. That one also is at 9 o'clock Eastern Time start. But that does it for us here this evening from Avondale, Arizona. 4 races now complete in 2019. As always, want to say thanks on behalf of our entire team at RealSimRacing LLC, the folks behind the scenes, the people who are up at the broadcast booth on a night-by-night basis, and of course for your team tonight. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Justin Prince, and our producer, Brett Wheeler, we want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Andrew Ferdinars. 4 wins in a row is what he is going to look for as we head to Auto Club Speedway next week, Monday, March the 18th. It is a 9 o'clock Eastern Time start. You'll see it right here on LSR TV. and the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Phoenix.